Okay, welcome everybody. It is our first official episode to Anime Talks, and today we're going to be covering something that is very, very awesome. I've been dying to drop this episode. It's been way overdue. I'm going to tighten up on getting these podcasts out. It's just a lot going on, and let's let's just get underway. Just one moment. Let's get it. So, underneath this layer of, I guess you could say, like major antagonists, I'd have to say Sosuke Aizen is by far one of the top tier, like scripted, like anime bosses in like the history of like antagonists for anime. He's awesome. Like he has the sly, the cunning. His is he's very he's not impulsive. He like he does so many things and oh, it's just crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's going through my mind right now, just vividly, just hitting line after line and everything that happened. But we're gonna cover just the basics, and we're gonna get to the most craziest letdown of Sosuke Aizen. So from the beginning, we'll start off with the fact that he's the the main antagonist of Bleach, and we don't see him until episode 23. And he's like a very kind-hearted, very soft-spoken, revered. He's a really good man. You know, that's what we know him to be. And that is almost kind of what killed me. It killed me as a viewer to watch Bleach and like get to this point because it's like just wow, like what is going on here? I just did not expect the way that his development just changed so quickly, and it's just wild. It's wild. So Sosuke Aizen, he starts off as, or what we see him as, he's one of the captains of the 13th Guard Squads, and he's very, 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 like I said, very calm, mild mannered. Like he's very, very awesome, and he's like very, it's it's wild. So he has a lieutenant, which is Momo. For those who don't know, Momo's like this this lieutenant. She's very very timid. Um, yeah, for most might say like one of those just the typical cute anime girl who has this undying loyalty towards Sosuke, and it gets a little bit crazier once we get to the the point where we're waiting to see what's going to happen. And for those who have not watched Bleach, be careful while watching this. I do recommend watching all of it. Don't do those little watch trying to skip filler or filler arcs. Watch it all. It's well worth it to chime back in and just boom, just hit back in, back and forth. It's good. I like it. It covers so much stuff, and it gives you a break from just being like boom, 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 boom. You know, just give yourself a little break. It's good to watch from the get go. And one thing that Mr. Eisen had that was crazy that that like kind of came about was in the Sedite, he had the most paramount switchover that was crazy. He was he faked his own death. And with faking his death, we learned a lot of different things about what's going on. Like for one, I didn't know he faked his death at this point yet, but it just looked like he was dead. So, you know, Momo goes crazy, everything's happening. It's going wild. This is all while the Ryoka, which is Ichigo and the rest of the squad, Uryu and Orihime, once they all got into the Sedite, they was known as Ryoka, just I guess we could just say non non-Soul Society inhabitants, so or non-Sedite inhabitants, and they were like on the hunt for that. But that whole captain dying sequence was kind of like just part of the plan. You know, you just didn't know what was really going on. But the show is like just ramping up at this part because later on we end up finding that he fakes his death and he teams up with another captain, Gin Ichimaru and Kaname Tosen. So it is wild when we see at the Hogyoku when they're doing when they're about to kill off and try to get rid of I'm like drawing a blank because everything is like vividly hitting back to me. It's when they're trying to take out Kuchiki, Rukia. So sorry. When they're trying to take out Rukia, it's very wild when we see that Sosuke is like full of like he's like crazy. He's crazy strong. So when we get down to the nastiness of what's going on here with the whole it's wild. It's wild. It's just so much going on. So when all this is going on and he just manages to like try out see with the Hogyoku and how all that's going on, he then has to flee and goes off to Waco Mundo. But he leaves with both Kaname and Gin. And we don't see him a little later on until we get down to the later portions of the series, and it's kind of annoying, like how they bounce back and forth. There's like the Bount arc, and then you have the Swing of Pendulum, the new Captain arc. We have so much stuff. The Sword Beast arc. We have so many arcs that encompass taking up like little slots until we get to that portion. And there's so much that we learn here with everything. And Aizen does so much in between all this stuff. Like he he is like he had the foresight of everything to set up like everything that happens in this show that we've seen so far is all it is crazy. So he sets up the original meeting between Rukia and Ichigo, and he monitors Ichigo all the way up until the end, which is what I'm about to cover. This is mainly a discussion and almost a review on Sosuke Aizen, and it's just a small review because I'm really trying to get down to the letdown of how Sosuke Aizen was beautifully crafted just to have the worst drop off for any villain, I feel, in any series. And Aizen, he ends up getting all he secretly kills Central 46. He sets that up. And one thing that we can't forget to mention is Sosuke Aizen also has one of the most powerful Zanpakuto in the series. I'd have to say second to or third to Matamusa. Uh, is it Matamusa? If I'm wrong, definitely please get back with me. And Old Man Yama. So his Zanpakuto allows him to, if anybody is hit with this or sees a Shikai, he's allowed to take over all 5 of your senses and basically makes you hallucinate, go through illusions, and you just don't know what's going on. And a lot of things happen with that being a thing, which is crazy, crazy. It's wild. It's wild. And then we see that he's end up needing to do many of things after fleeing the Soul Society with his two accomplices. He ends up going after he removes the Hogyoku and gets to another portion. He ends up getting a lot more things covered as far as being able to start up his own tribe, which is the Arankar. And with the Arankar, he starts up this basically this army of Arankar and higher elite Arankar, known as Espadas, to be able to basically set fort and be able to protect him as he's learning and trying to manipulate the Hogyoku to do his biggest dream, which is to take out the Soul Society. And we learn so much once we get down to the later portions of the show. When he's in Waco Mundo, and then you have Ichigo and everybody else just powering through or trying to power through Waco Mundo and go through all of the Espadas or lower level Rancor, middle range Rancor, and then you have your Espadas that they see here and there. You see so many different things, and whenever we get to the final parts of when after Aizen ends up um snagging access to use, can't remember his name either. It's so many names going everywhere. But when he's able to kidnap Orihime and uh be able to get back with Orihime and then try to see what her powers can do, which is why uh he was able to do that and distract everybody from being able to pay attention to what's going on. And of course, it goes with it. And then we end up realizing that we have a bigger problem further than that. And that problem he had was it was like almost his greed, but he was so smart that just his greed was just throwing him everywhere. And of course, like almost every show, the main protagonist, that it happens every time. The plot armor just through the fucking roof. Uh, it throws everybody off to where you don't know what's going on. You're just trying to make sense of what's really happening, and then Ichigo's plot armor just makes him just super strong and can do whatever. It's wild. So Aizen is then able to talk to Ichigo at one point in time in the show and like just puts into perspective that everything that has happened in the show up to this point was set up for the final showdown between Aizen and Ichigo. Basically, Ichigo has been following this path that was set up by Aizen since like the first episode. And I say first episode, but the first episode of the conflict between Ichigo meeting Rukia, having to take down the Hollow. That was all a planned thing that we end up learning. And I'm going to have to go back and do a re-edit of this portion to put in the beginning that we do have spoilers, and if you'll be able to hear this, and I'm very apologetic towards that. I definitely didn't say this from the beginning, but it's okay. If you're listening to this, you already know what you signed up for and what we're getting into. But back to the rest of Aizen's come up and downfall. He ends up taking in the Hogyoku. And this is where I realized that we weren't getting into a really detailed fight scene here, because Aizen has been in the show since episode 23, and he's been around for a while. And we end up going back to seeing how he attacks and basically sabotages the older members of the Soul Society, now known as the Visors, and like Shinji, and of course at the time the research department head, which was Kisuke. We have so many people that fell to Aizen's plot and just his schemes and everything that that's kind of what the buildup was, and that you were so excited being able to check out how much was going on and happening, and we're just going back and forth with what he did, and there were so many flashback episodes that were so worth watching that he did when he was trying to make their first Arankar, where he was trying to turn people into hollows, and it was crazy. It's just whew, like it's beyond me on what the author behind this did an amazing job. I really can't just fathom the thought process of how detailed and how layered his character design is. It's crazy. I enjoyed every last bit of watching this, and I'm going to enjoy watching and creating more of this. But when we see the ending of Aizen's reign, we see him absorb the Hogyoku and then become an even bigger beast, bigger hollow. Then he goes through like a kind of like a transformation, kind of like he does this Frieza thing where he goes into like different forms and then boom, he's like smooth, like a smooth form. And I feel like the fight between Ichigo and Aizen was a huge letdown because of the buildup that it took us to get to this point. It's scary. It's almost scary that there's so much buildup, and we're like, there's no way possible that we're going to just bypass this and act like this doesn't exist, because like we can't. There's no way possible that we just bypass this and pretend that we're just gonna watch this happen in like just a couple episodes. And that's kind of what happened. Like the fight between Ichigo and Aizen was very, very, very lame, and there wasn't much action that happened. And I can say I did not. It's just I don't know. I just really couldn't go with what's going on. And once again, uh, I definitely did not. I just don't. It throws me off. But I also didn't finish that. I did not finish the series yet, so I am only talking about the the portion to where Aizen is sentenced to 18,000 years of imprisonment in the 8th prison. So we that's where I'm at now. I haven't finished it. I'm in the early 300s. So please bear with me. This is only a partial review of Aizen. So we are going to get to the last portion a little later on, probably an episode later. I'm definitely going to be titling this as part 1. So be prepared to watch and get, if you haven't checked this out, please do. It's such a solid show. There's so much going on, and Aizen, the fight between Aizen and Ichigo was definitely a letdown. It wasn't as uh as detailed as like the Grimjow fight, which is another fight I'll be covering, and the Ukiorch fight. That's a good fight too. And then of course, he has other fights. I think this fight was just all about plot armor. And it's just like, Ichigo, you need to do this, do some crazy stuff. Let's go get the final Getsuga. You know, it's it's just one of those. Mm, mm. But nonetheless, I will definitely say we did reach a really good understanding of Aizen so much through his deception, the betrayal, his his cunning actions that led us all the way up until episode 300 in like one or two. One of those episodes is in that block where we get to the end or that portion of the end. So it's very drawn out. I do recommend if you're not into watching, the filler stuff, which does still like kind of get in there. It's kind of about roundabout part of it, but you can look up a guide and skip it if need be. But I do recommend watching it. It's very important. Check it out and definitely watch these fights closely. Our next fight that we'll be covering, I'll be able to release this here. It'll be the definitely a review of the Grimjow fight. The Grimjow fight has I've also went to social media, had a conversation about this, and so far the Grimjow fight takes the cake for a lot of people. And of course we see a lot of like fast hand to hand combat. Like it's not like just a bunch of Zanpakuto just flare. It's more hand to hand combat, like kind of like old school Dragon Ball Z. Like just seeing a lot of just bam, bam, bam. Like we're really connecting hits. You're getting punched in the face. I'm kicking you and breaking you. You're getting a lot of that versus these other fights where it's like almost just like kind of like a Gallic gun versus a Kamehameha wave. Like that's kind of how those other fights are taking place. But we cannot take away how awesome this character design and how far it was being drilled in of how it's just so addicting. Sosuke Aizen is definitely one of the most addicting characters that I've ever been able to see. The plot, his script, everything's good, almost perfect, and it makes him such a dynamic character. You just really can't be like, man, I'm not into this because you want to know why he deceived and how far did he get. It's just one of those great things about anime and Bleach in particular. But I'm not going to hold this any much longer. Y'all, please check out the next episode of Anime Talks. This was only just covering the small little review on Sosuke Aizen and the obvious letdown of the Ichiko versus Aizen fight. It was very lackluster. It didn't have enough flair. It was too much of a power struggle of like power beams versus hand to hand combat. And the plot armor of Ichigo was just ridiculous. It happens to the best animes, and it makes it to where it's kind of tough to get to where you want to be because you just got plot armor that's just like whop right in the face. Just makes it to where you really don't know what would happen. You would almost think Ichigo should have been dead after that fight, but you know, it's what happens. It's how the show keeps going on, and to that end, thank y'all so much